All right, it's my pleasure now to welcome on author, educator, and grade cricketer Stephen Pinner. Steve, how are you today, mate?
Very good, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Mate, absolute pleasure. The first episode I've done in the brand new studio, which is in the beautiful, beautiful area of Preston. So I'm very excited to find
Very flash. It's very flash.
Yeah, and you can tell I've taken all the merchandise down. I didn't want to intimidate you with anything. But before we get into the incredible work, your book, which you've just how long did it take?
Oh, I'd hate to say 5 years, but 5 years.
Yeah, that's a long time on a project.
Was.
But before we do get into that, you're an educator, and I've mentioned you before on this show as one of my favourite teachers, top 500 teachers I think I've ever had.
Thanks, mate.
But let's get into sort of, I guess, how we met, which is obviously you're a teacher at Viewbank College, which is where I attended. What was it that drew you into teaching, I guess, and do you have any memories of me as a student?
I absolutely do. Well, the first part of the question was teaching was something I actually got into teaching straight out of high school myself, but I deferred it for about 12 years. So I went and did a few other things. I travelled and I worked in sport and I did worked in travel.
Yeah.
So and then
that's right, I remember that.
Yeah. Spent a year at Flight Centre at Northland, which was an experience. So
that is.
Yeah, I was looking for all these big deals to come in, and I got a lot of people coming in bartering over $69 flights to Sydney. So, teaching kind of came back purely because I wanted my weekends back to start with. That was a bit of a because I said grade cricketer, third grade cricketer, mind you, not first grade,
but a very impressive third grade. Cricketer.
Oh, no, I do have a few A grade premierships that I got carried to, so I'm happy to have my photo up on the wall at the Bear Cave.
Yeah, you got a couple on the weekend. I
did. I got a 30 on the weekend, so so still facing reasonably quick bowls at 48, mate. It's a shock to the system. So I wanted to get back and play sport, and I was working in sport and not having any weekends to myself. So and I mean I'd always loved coaching, and I suppose I'd taught sort of in some ways through Flight Centre and all the different roles that I'd had, taking on leadership roles to help guide people, I suppose. So it was a natural fit. So I headed up to Latrobe Wodonga for 12 months to do a dip ed.
God's country.
It is magnificent.
Yeah.
So I'm actually heading back up there in less than a month's time for our annual family holiday to Bright. So beautiful part of the world. So did that for 12 months and then ended up back at my old high school because I was a Rosanna Reese High School boy.
Oh, was that what it was called beforehand?
Before it changed to Viewbank College. And my first staff meeting, I sat in beside a certain librarian who we terrorised for many years.
Is it the same librarian that we terrorised?
It was.
Was it?
Yeah.
We won't name it just in case she's watching the show.
We won't. So, and she looked me up and down. I was waiting for her to be horrified, and she said, "Oh, you weren't too bad." And I was like, "You must have a very short memory." So
I remember those wet days when everyone was in the library. She used to lock the doors, and it was like a zoo.
It was crazy.
It was
yes,
probably one of my finest memories.
One of the greatest recent sort of things I've been able to do is take my kids through that school because they're both. My daughter's in year 8 going into year 9 there.
Yeah, and
my son's starting year 7 there next year. And so on a recent tour, I told a few stories about what went on in the library to my young fella, and he thought it was bloody hysterical. So pity the poor librarian up at Viewbank College now because Darcy will probably try to emulate what we got up to.
The family legacy lives on.
Absolutely. So in regards to my memories of you, it was a pretty interesting sort of cohort. That group included a well-known AFL footballer and a few others, and I do remember walking into a small business management class. It must have been in my first week or two, and there were 23 boys and about 3 poor girls in there. And there's a saying in teaching that you use the 5-step plan to planning a class, and that's your last 5 steps before you get to the classroom. Work out what you're going to do. So I used to do that quite a bit. Do other things off the top of my head, but they were. I enjoyed you guys. You're a fun group. You're buggers, but I've always gravitated to the buggers because, as I said to, I think it was a certain Jesse McDonald one day. Jess, you're a pain in the ass now, but you'll be a good bloke to have a beer with in a few years.
Yeah.
And I did have a beer with him in Burgundy Street at Barclays one a few years later actually when he was sitting out there. So. Yeah, so no, you're a good group.
Yeah, I sort of mentioned that why off air when we were talking about why I thought you were such a good teacher was the fact that our year group was legitimate hell. And if you had the wrong, which sounds bad because it's just like, well, don't be shitheads, right? But trying to telling
teenagers not to be shitheads.
I'm 31. I'm still a shithead. So, but if you had the wrong approach to that, the class was literally filled with like 24, 25 of these shitheads, and you were just you'd lost the battle before. And there was I remember like drama classes and like science classes. Like I remember one class where science we had the Bunsen burners, and one kid was like rolling like a fake cigarette, and I was like, it was like Faulty Towers. But no, you were easily the cream of the crop out of that teaching group.
You know what? I had a very good mentor who was a guy called Viv Demetrio, who was my accounting teacher in Year 12, and also my mentor when I went back as a teacher. Viv used to meet us at the old Lower Plenty TAB in Year 12 and give us tips, which he's not teaching anymore, so I can say this. And the commerce teachers used to actually have a little staff room where they'd smoke cigars and play poker at lunchtime. So that's the sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff that used to go on back in the early 90s. So no, I had a very and he was great. He was just exactly what you're saying. He was a great. He was more a mentor than a teacher. You know, we do our work because we didn't want to disappoint him. You know, and that's kind of rare with some a lot of the teachers. You don't do work to spite them. So
I mean, I dropped out of school, and we'll get into what I did next because you're involved in a similar thing. But I didn't really. I'm not going to say I was. I'm definitely not dumb, but I definitely had that like. I didn't want to let you down. Every other teacher that I've ever come across, I think, in my entire life, I've happily was like, I'll happily let you down. I'll happily let you down. If you want to
I think we were very similar, Chris. Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why I think getting onto sort of the education side of things is I think that's what makes I'm not going to say a good teacher because there's some great teachers out there that have just got amazing subject knowledge and they've got that sort of expert ability that kids will go along with them because they know what they're talking about. And I don't necessarily have that, but I always wanted to be able to connect with the kids so that, you know, like to make them feel special in a way. But that's how I was a student. My favourite teachers weren't the ones that were, you know, knew everything back to front, but they were the teachers that you could have a chat with about, you know, sport cricket on the weekend or, you know, how the Saints are going or whatever it is. Well, usually, and that's been a common thing all through my life, mate. So I've had a lot of teachers feel sorry for me, I think. So, but yeah, and that kind of, when I got in front of a group of students for the first time, that just kind of, that naturally flowed, I suppose. So
yeah, no, that's great. There's one question that I do want to just sort of get out of the way early because it's a little bit just off topic, but it's something I really need to address. Now, I remember you posted one of these cricket quizzes a few years ago on Facebook. People were posting it. You know, who is your favourite teammate, worst teammate, all this sort of stuff. Now, under best arm, you put a really good friend of mine named Sam Staples as like under best arm.
It was only a couple of years ago. Yes.
Now he played at Banyule for about 3 minutes.
He did,
and I've known Sam since I was 6 years old, and I can confidently tell you that he has one of the worst arms I've ever seen.
You know what? It was based on one run out in a big game, a semi-final against Riverside. Yeah. That was one of the best games I've ever played in, mind you. And Stapes has ripped one in from, I think it was from like third man and ran the bloke out. It was an absolute belter. So, and that's got him. So that's what got him the Guernsey there.
That hurts me, but I can picture him right now, or not right now. When he listens to this, he's a very difficult man to be around when he's up and about, and that will get him up and about. But
Stapes is also a member of a very inauspicious club, which is being hit into another sport.
Please,
I'll explain.
Yeah.
The theory goes that if you, as a bowler for cricket, if you get hit into another sport, it can happen if you get hit into an adjacent golf course or, in Stapes' case, it was an adjacent tennis court. Oh. So at Plenty, in that year that he did play with us, a bloke took to his little offies and hit him into tennis. But one of my close mates said, I hope will listen to this, and I'm going to drop him in because this is one of the great stories of all time. we were playing East Ivanhoe at Chelsworth.
Yeah.
Would have been probably 15 years ago.
Matted Golden there, just FYI.
Yeah.
Just sneak that in.
It's one of those great grounds you think I'm set for a big innings here. It's beautiful. And I never made runs.
I got run out to, it was halfway down the wicket. It wasn't my fault.
So we're playing East Ivanhoe, who had two local doctors, one well-known local doctor from the Rosanna area, Dr. McCall, who's a ripper. They were benefactors, and they used to fund a few international players that come and play at East Ivanhoe.
Wow.
So they've had a few Sri Lankans.
Yeah.
Julep was a lovely fella, played a few tests in the 80s. I think his cricket CV has Border, Boone and Moody as his victims, so he could bowl. He was a very good bowler. And they had a Dutch international for a season called Alexi Kavesi.
That is a great name.
Alexi Kavesi played in the World Cup in 99 or maybe 2003, faced Brett Lee, so good bat. So this is this one game, last game before the finals, I think. They weren't going to make it, we were, so we were kind of just going through the motions. They almost beat us outright. Anyway, so Alexi's out batting. And he, I don't think he really got the Australian way of sledging. So we weren't being too nasty. We were just asking how many guilders he was being paid in or whatever it was. And he was getting a bit upset. Anyway, so we were Ryan Hartnett, that is, was our keeper in the days. He's getting a bowl. So he comes in and he's bowled one to Alexi and he's banged it in short and Alexi's jumped out of the way of it. And we were like, hang on.
Jesus. This is a keeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he got a little bit more then. The next ball, I was fielding it regulation mid-wicket. The ball fizzed over my head like a golf ball. And it landed on about the 16th green
at Ivanhoe.
And this is my greatest moment on a cricket field. Don't worry about the single century or the premierships or anything like that. But I then retorted, let's see if he can putt. Which I'll claim to the day I die as my greatest moment on a cricket field.
Oh, that is such a good sledge.
It is, and it's just a great story. And we actually adjusted Alexi's Wikipedia page to had that story, and that lasted about 24 hours before it got edited. So Mumbles, we still Rhino or Mumbles, he still hears about Alexi every year for some reason. I think the memory pops up or something like that.
Oh, geez, that's a good one. It's not surprising that Sam got hit
into another sport.
Into another sport. I think one of my favourite. Probably my best sledging performance wasn't really a sledge, but it was just funny. So last year I was a one-man band supporting Lower Plenty Cricket Club down at St Helena where they played for the year.
Anthony Beale, yes.
Anthony Beale, yep. I'd just take my esky, my deck chair, and I'd sit in the back corner. And Sam was bowling, and I think he's just bowled a 4-bunger, stock standard for him, and it's been hit. And I love to say, I say it during footy, I say bounce funny because I'm trying to get the ball to bounce in the Port Adelaide way.
Yep.
And so it's absolutely been clobbed. It's gone for 6, and just sitting in my chair, I just yelled out a bounce funny. And the keeper, Jackson Grimble, said to me, he goes, as I'm watching this ball go, he's like, all I can hear is his voice just go, bounce funny, when it's pretty much on the bottom ground. But God loves Sam, but
yeah, we miss him. It was very disappointing when he left, but
he's a
good fella.
He's a good fella, but
good clubman.
He's a great clubman. But not the ball doesn't land sometimes with him, that's fine. So after Viewbank, you went on to teach at Cedar, which
I did,
which was a program run by Cricket Victoria. I guess as a traineeship through Victoria University, which has some very notable attendees. Glenn Maxwell is one, Chris Bowen's another. I had some very fond memories there, which I won't really share too much about the great man Tim Palmer. We really pushed him a few times, and he said some things he probably shouldn't have said back, but that's completely fine. But what was that experience like for you, I guess, from going away from a traditional teaching environment into literally the zoo? Because that was pretty much just those 23 boys.
Yeah, you were very isolated. You were by yourself. So it was the best teaching gig I think you can have. It was fantastic. And I actually took over that class at Northcote from Tim. So I think from memory there were about 5 or 6 boys that might have been in your class the year that I took from the previous year that I inherited. And they were the challenging ones.
Josh Saunders one of those?
No, Joshy was one of the earlier of the next intake. Yeah. The real estate agent who's a slash GQ model.
Extraordinaire.
Oh, geez, he looks good on Instagram, doesn't he?
Oh, and he lets you know. I actually went to dinner with him last week, and he
did
wore
you?
a sweater, but he had
over his shoulders.
Over his shoulders,
Of course
yeah.
he did.
And it was 30 degrees.
But
But
fit in Cape Cod, I think, Joshy. So
he's a great man, but
Yes.
we could rip on him. Actually ripped on him too much on one episode. I did previously, and I got a little bit of a
did you?
from his PR manager. Yeah,
I can understand that. No,
so I can't rip on him too much.
I'm a big fan of Josh. He's a good lad, and I'm very, very. He's one of those guys that, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, that when he got to Cedar, he was pretty lost in what he was going to do. And I remember having a chat with him one day and said, "What do you enjoy?" And we wrote down some things, and one of them was real estate. And
He said that you were the reason.
so we've had that chat before, but I'm very proud of him. He's a lovely kid, and now he's a very good looking young man. So he wasn't that way when he was at Cedar. Let's just say
no, he wasn't. And I as much as I like to give him a lot of stick, I am actually very proud of the man he is, because there is very little. There are very few people who have the type of work ethic that he's had, and he's reaping the rewards for that.
Absolutely.
It's great to see that, because I was exactly the same as him. I'm a little bit better looking and a little bit better body at that point in time, but I was very lost when I went to Cedar. I didn't want to go to school anymore, and it's amazing how many people that joined that sort of program who were in like a similar spot.
And that's what was successful. You think a kid's getting pigeonholed. You're either a VCE kid or you're a trade kid. And if you don't fit into those boxes, where do you fit? And for a lot of young guys, you don't kind of work things out until you get into your early 20s or your mid 20s. And we're making kids make life decisions very early on in the piece. And Cedar just provided that opportunity where, kids can come in, they could get mentored by a person that had a similar sort of viewpoint to them. They love their sport, and that was the driver. We could kind of get them to learn by stealth, and that's what it was. It was, okay, well, you're doing literacy and stuff, but you're not doing something on Shakespeare. You're watching The Blind Side, and you're writing an essay on The Blind Side.
It was very basic.
It was.
But it was great.
But it did evolve. That. It did evolve after probably you moved on.
I was a guinea pig.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And my first couple of years in there, that's why I loved it, because we were literally going into meetings and saying, what curriculum can we deliver next week? And it was the best teaching job, because you had that ability to create. It was, you don't just have something thrown in front of you and saying, teach this. That's boring. Most teachers hate it. But this was like, okay, let's create what is going to be great for the kids.
Yeah.
And so, some of the welfare stuff we rolled out through the Reach Foundation that became embedded in the curriculum was stuff that we did in those first couple of years. And even just like the flexibility that you didn't have bells ringing, you didn't have to get permission forms signed. I took the class in when Cadell Evans had won the Tour de France, and he came back to Fed Square, and they had the civic reception. And I said, okay, boys, let's get this work done now, and we'll go in and see Cadell. So we went in to Fed Square, hung out for the day, saw Cadell.
See you later.
It was great, and then probably went somewhere on the way home to have a scratch match for footy or whatever it was. So it was really it was a great environment. Great the cricket group especially had some fantastic teachers in it, and Hugh Van Kuylenberg, who runs the Resilience Project. He was one of the boys in there for the first few years.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he ran the program out of Melbourne Uni.
Yeah.
So Huey's done exceptionally well. Dale Sidebottom, who's just done he released a book last year called Play. So he's going around and running corporates and all sorts of stuff about the importance of having play in your life for your mental health. And so he'd be a great guest to have on. He came on a little bit later in the Cedar. So, so I think that was the thing. We're a very like-minded group. We got along. We had a ball. It was really just, as I said, if I could relive probably the first 3 or 4 years of my teaching, or any teaching time, it would be those first 3 or 4 years. They were awesome.
I think back to like certain parts of it which were just like, I guess when I went into it, because I was like that first, I think
you were,
I was like the first group, and so you didn't really know actually what you were actually doing.
I remember you trying to explain it to me when, because I wrote you the reference to get in.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? It's a cricket program.
Yeah.
How can I do this? This sounds great. And then like 12 months later, I was in it too.
Yeah.
So
I remember is one of my favorite memories was, so we got to use the MCG's indoor facilities
the nets
like
in the gym.
multiple times, and I remember being in the gym. And there's Max Klinger, doing just sets of bicep curls, and I'm like, oh, you probably should do some other exercises. Now I'm at 31, that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
But I was batting in one of the nets, and there was a guy next to me, and sort of he wasn't an established cricketer in the Victorian side yet. He was an opener at Geelong and had a really good year. His name's Aaron Finch.
Yes.
And I remember just watching him bat, and then I'm batting. And yes, I made the DVCA under 16 rep side, which I haven't mentioned on one of these episodes before, but there was a very different sound to the ball coming off my bat.
I think it's just the quality of the bats, probably.
I was going to say, it sounded like I was using a fucking cashmere cricket bat.
Yeah, plank of wood off the fence.
But it was those sort of experiences were pretty cool. I remember we had to do like a sports trainer course.
Yep.
And I don't know what club he was from.
Was that a guy from the Western Region Footy League came in? He was an old fella, and he
was
loved
not happy.
He loved his tape. He loved his elastoplast.
The memory I have is this guy was just so grumpy.
Yeah.
And he was he knew how much each centimetre of that tape was worth. And I mean, we was like strapping a few of the boys' ankles, and we were fucking around a bit, trying to make it look like Petro Sivanasiva's knee when he played State of Origin at 40 years old.
Yeah.
And he was not thrilled.
No.
Not thrilled with the amount of elastoplast that was going around my ankle.
You know what? I do recall him saying to our group of guys that something about, it costs $350 for Chris Judd's each shoulder, so don't waste it, something like that.
Jesus.
Whatever the figure was. It was in the hundreds.
It's worth it, though.
Well, that's why footy clubs, they get sponsored by Chemist Warehouse these days just so they can get their elastoplast.
God, could you imagine being like a trainer at like Heidelberg West Football Club, another club that I talk about a lot, and the coach doesn't like me mentioning bad stories on the club because he's trying to change the culture.
Oh, fair enough, yes.
But could you imagine being the president of the club when I'm playing in the twos? I've probably just ducked around the back and maybe had a couple of cigarettes, and I've gone, I need you to tape my knee, my ankle, and then my wrists, and you're like, you're going to have 7 kicked on you today. I'm not spending $50.
Waste tape on
I'm not going to spend $50 of tape on your body.
I'll save it to the blokes playing in the ones. Actually, speaking of West, my father-in-law is a former Heidelberg West footballer.
Oh, really?
So shout out to Kev. He used to go back to all the old reunions and things. So
what's his last name?
Simmons, Kevin Simmons. Yeah. Okay. So he's was raised in their family home was on the site of where Woolies is in Heidelberg now.
Yeah.
Before it became Safeway, and then before it became Woolies.
Yeah,
so there you go. So,
world.
Kev loves his West boys.
Yeah, my dad's a life member there. I will be a life member eventually.
Yeah.
For off-field performances, not
absolutely, mate. That's the best way to do it.
Not on-field, but it's a great club, and I guess. With Cedar, I know that obviously you're out of that now. Was that sort of what kind of transformed, I guess, and sort of kick-started the book?
It did, yeah. I needed to get kicked out of my comfort zone, and I did get kicked out. So, there was a restructure, and I'd moved into the third year of the program for 1 year and had a class at Watermark, which was a great facility to have a class. You'd use the gym and have a swim and do whatever you want all the time, which was great. But when they consolidated some of the third-year programs, I was basically without a class. Pardon me. So I was offered a cricket class at Springvale, which was a little bit out of the neck of the woods to be travelling to every day. So
you're too far for the dump.
Yeah, so it was time and to tell you the truth, it was time. It was time to kind of move on to something else. And I just turned 40 from memory, so I was starting to have those midlife. Do I want to wake up one day in 20 years' time and have gone back into a school and been a grumpy teacher, which I was determined never to be. So I.
Do you think you would have been like that? Because I mean, I don't think that your personality would. And obviously, everyone becomes jaded when you're in a certain situation. But I just can't picture you as that grumpy teacher.
No, you know what? I think I would have more been bitching and moaning to staff.
A bit more.
I don't think I ever would have taken that in the kids. I
Yeah.
think the kids, because I think they would have still remained my focus of, it's not their fault that what the system is the way it is. So, but it's just something, I think even when I got into teaching, I never really thought that it would be a lifelong thing. It was something that I'd do for a while, and that might just be the way that I've approached my working life. I've done something for a while, then I've kind of had enough, and I've right, what's my next challenge I want to do, or what I want to do. And a lot of it in my early years was, basically dictated by travelling. So I'd want to go somewhere, so I'd work for a while, then I'd travel, and then I'd get home and go, all right, what am I going to do now? And so that's how it kind of worked out. But
very similar to me. Probably arguing not even the first few years of my working life. Pretty much all of my working life had been literally, I'll work this job for a year and then just take my life savings and then use it appropriately.
Absolutely.
By sitting 5 rows from the front at the Staples Centre to watch Blake Griffin and Lob City.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've got mates that have got investment properties and all those sorts of things. And let's say 10 years ago, were well ahead of me in terms of, property and all that sort of stuff. I would not trade one of my experiences.
Not a chance.
I've sat in Nepal and sat at 4,200 metres and looked up at a mountain towering above me, another 4Ks above my head.
Yeah.
And I would not give up that experience. I would not give up the experience of pouring pints at Guinness for a living for 6 months.
Yeah.
I would not, all the different things that I've been lucky enough to do. Yeah. I wouldn't give up any of them for, to be further in my career or have a little flat somewhere where, I'm cashing on some poor renter.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. I remember going to – so I was in America and I really wanted to go to see the national championship game.
Yep.
And the tickets to that obviously were just – I was like, that is like 5 AFL grand finals all in one. And so I was in Arizona, which is where it was, and I was like, the tickets are too expensive for me. And so I've gone into the hotel, was knackered from travelling. I just come from Washington the day before, the 3 a.m. train to Baltimore, and then the old, it wasn't a red-eye flight, but it's early enough for me.
Yep.
And I was like, they're like, hey, you can't check into your room till 3. I was like, for fuck's sake. So I went and literally, I was sleeping on a couch in the hotel lobby, and I hear these two really loud, obnoxious Americans talking about the ticket prices to the national championship game, which was in like 5 hours. And they're like, the ticket prices are just dropping. The ticket prices had gone from the cheapest was like $900 or something US. The cheapest now was like $140 US. And I was like, went on to StubHub straight away, bought it, and I just said to them, take my bags. And I just headed off to this thing. And the experience I had there was like, it's like 100,000 people.
Yeah,
it was the most wild experience. And that was one of the ones where I'm very fortunate to have experienced what I really wanted to experience for a large part, because I travelled alone.
Yep.
But like, I remember just sort of being there and going like, fuck, how did today turn out like this? And like, if I did have a different mindset to be like, yeah, fucking let's put my money away and do the smart thing. Yep. I wouldn't have had that, situation.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And I know I can totally relate to that. Just travelling by yourself's the best. It's you go wherever the wind blows you. You don't have, mates going, oh no, I don't want to go and do that, or I want to, and there's always stories about friends that travel together. One wants to see the touristy things, one doesn't. They end up going their separate ways.
The other one wants to have 18 pints.
Exactly. Well, exactly right. Like one of my close mates that, I did my first proper overseas trip, which only was to Bali, mind you, but he just wanted to sit by the pool and drink bintangs all day, which is fine. That's what I do now when I go to Bali. But back in those days, I wanted culture. I wanted to go and see the volcano when I wanted to go. I mean, now I just, oh my goodness, having to get on that bus for 6 hours to get up and see a volcano. Painful. But back in those days, I wanted to get out and do stuff. And it created a bit of friction between us, because he was like, why are you going? Why don't you stay here in the pool and drink beers until we go out and drink jungle juice?
Yeah. So I remember having that same not that same moment. I was in Hawaii with a very good mate of mine, Matt Byron, and he was there the day before, and so I literally had a red eye in from coming from Canada, and he goes, I got us booked in for a tour at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I was like, Matt, what the fuck are you thinking? And it ended up being probably the best night of my life, I reckon. The tour guide was, you're thinking like Hawaii, you're thinking a Hawaiian dude.
Yep.
A white guy, mohawk. His name was Kevin.
Yeah.
And he was the most up and about man at 7 a.m. And we were obviously pretty flat. We'd had a couple of, some jungle juice.
Yep.
But it ended up literally being the craziest night, best night of my life. And because we ended up going out, and he goes, there's a massive like fireworks show down near the Hilton. And, if you guys want to come around, he's like, we'll be there for beers. And we'd never thought about going to meet him for beers. But we took like a doggy bag full of cruisers. I'm not embarrassed to say that. And we went down to the beach to see the fireworks. We missed it, but then we ran into Kevin.
Yeah.
And then we ended up going out with him and his girlfriend and his wife, and he was telling us about how they made love in one of the pyramids in like one of the alleyways, and they had to hide from. And it was the drunkest I've ever been.
Yeah.
And but easily the best night. And it started off with me going like, why are we doing a tour to go visit a coffee place at 8 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii?
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes you just need to go with it. And as I say, go where the wind blows you. I had a similar thing in India where I was walking along the streets of Jaipur, the Pink City.
Yeah.
And you get accosted all the time because you're a 6'2" white guy walking along the streets.
You're standing out.
You're standing out, and with a bald head too.
Yeah.
I probably had a hat on because I didn't want to get a burnt head. People are coming up saying, "What are you here?" And I'd say, "I'm here for cricket. I'm here for the Test matches." Yeah. And they would just go, "You're here for cricket?" And you'd be the best person in the world straight away. And there was one guy came up to me and he said, "Oh, please, what are you doing for lunch?" And I said, I don't know, mate, I'm just going for a wander. And he goes, you come to my cousin's restaurant. Yeah. And I go, okay, should I?
Probably
anyway,
not,
go to the restaurant and ended up being, had lunch with them. Yeah, they wouldn't let me pay a thing. And then they said, do you play cricket? And I said, I play cricket. Oh, do you want to play cricket now? And I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah, fucking oath.
So they take me to this massive, big, open
Can't be worse than John Howard when he was playing over there.
No.
Well, I haven't seen you bowl, though. I've seen you bat. I haven't seen you bowl.
Well, I've always said that I've been over-batted and under-bowled, Chris. So that's my... If I ever get a tat, I'm going to be admiring yours today, I'll have over-batted and under-bowled. So I went up this massive big open area with just a dust bowl with probably 15, 20 cricket grounds there. So kids are playing cricket everywhere. And we went to the one in the middle, and all these kids there end up joining in one massive big game. And I'm taking off, doing the Merv, running in with my,
You're bowling at kids.
Bowling at kids.
And then, long run?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't really trying to knock them over.
You were.
But yeah, and we just had a ball and then went and batted and smashed this kid, hit him about 4 or 5 slums away. And the poor kid couldn't get his ball, so I flicked him a few rupees to replace his ball, which probably would have fed his family for a month or something. But it was just a great experience, and it just came about because I chatted to this bloke in the street and said, I'll come out for lunch, why not? Yeah. So, I could have quite easily said, no, I'm going to go down to KFC in Jaipur, and
that's probably where I would have gone. Spicy food doesn't agree with my body.
Oh, doesn't it?
Yeah, no.
Well, one other just quick story from India before we move on, but I'd actually had some mates. We're all flying in from different parts of the world for this. This is the 2004 Test Series, which Australia won under Gilly. Gilly was captain because Ponting missed it. So
why did Ponting miss?
Ponting was injured, and Tendulkar was injured as well, unfortunately. So so it didn't. It was, but they had Dravid and VVS, and they had a really, really good side. So but we were in Bangalore for the first test, and one of the boys had flown in from the UK, and we'd made a booking at a restaurant. We teed up the waiter and said, "We want you to bring this bloke the hottest curry."
Oh my god!
So make sure don't say anything. So Hodgie, this guy's one of the great men in straight out of, I think he's out of Wagga, one of the great characters.
God's country.
Absolutely. He's appeared on the scene, gone into this restaurant. And it was almost a dead set giveaway because the whole restaurant staff, we were the only people in there, have crowded around to watch him eat. And he's going, what's going on here? And like about 30 seconds later, he's guzzling anything he possibly could to try and put the fire out in his mouth. And I think the next day at the cricket, he might have been a bit late getting there before I had to had to relieve himself before
because Matt Renshaw.
Yeah, didn't want to go to the have to use the public facilities at the Bangalore Cricket Stadium because they weren't flash. So great experiences travelling. So wouldn't pass them up for the world.
Let's get into the book.
Yes, mate.
Which is called Man Restarted. So you sort of go through, I guess, what you would call a midlife crisis.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it leads you down this path. Now, at what point did you sort of go, shit, I might actually start putting pen to paper? Because obviously it's not, something you don't just...
No.
You don't just go, I'm going to write a book. Like, how do you get to the point where you're like, I might actually do this?
Yeah. I'd always been a little hobbyist, I suppose, in writing, mainly my travel diaries when I was away. So I had the Adventures of Backpacking Steve that I used to send back, and people used to get good response from them. People say, "Oh, you should put them together and write a book." And it was always sitting in my head for a long while. So very early on in the piece, after I left Cedar, I went to a writing seminar because I was just about to sign up and do a writing course.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, are you what you would consider a good writer?
Well, you can read it and then tell me, mate. But I have proofread it myself, so there's going to be a couple of errors in there. I just thought that I'd probably have to do something. And this seminar run by a guy called Andrew Jobling, who, funnily enough, is a former Saints player. He played in the Saints in the early 80s.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know at the time.
Glory days.
And I'm a mad Saint and spent a lot of time watching us get our asses kicked through the 80s. But... so Andrew was he's written about 8 books, but his message that day was if you've got a story, write it. Yeah. Don't wait till you learn how to write. There's always ways that you can pay people to edit. You can do all proofread, all that sort of stuff. So if you've got a story, if you've got something that you want to pass on to people, then just do it. Just write it, which is a great message because I think a lot of people have that. Oh, I don't know how to write a book, but realistically, it's just start writing. And this started off as a book for kind of almost like stuff to do before you're 40 or about a 40-year-old man. That's what it was. So a couple of things. That was 2015. And in the first half of that year, I lost 2 mates, one at suicide and one who'd been a childhood friend who'd battled cystic fibrosis for his whole life and had a double lung transplant, which had extended his life. And he passed away after fighting, you'd talk about 2 different sort of passings. One was horribly tragic, but at a man's own hand, and the other one was a guy who just desperately wanted to live, and bloody cancer got him in the end. So after everything he'd been through, so that kind of threw me on a little bit of a different path, which was something I didn't understand. But the mental health side of things, which has been great learning about that. But I did have a background, as you know, in sort of the Built Boys education. So that's something that I'd already started to put some pieces to the puzzle together about how guys, whether in their middle life or they're in their 30s like yourself, how we've been affected by our upbringings and our fathers have been affected by it and our grandfathers have been affected by the similar sorts of things, and we're just kind of the latest generation to have to deal with it. So there's a little bit of the man IQ that I call in it, but a lot of it's based on positive psychology, which has been something that I've been a big rat for a long while. So
yeah, it's amazing when you do sort of, we just spoke about for 15, 20 minutes about our experiences in traveling and all this sort of thing. And when you get to that point where, and I'm not saying this is bad, I'm not married, I don't have kids, but a lot of the times, you have this wild life in your 20s, and then all of a sudden you get to your 30s, and then you get married, you get kids, and then to say a lull is a really, really bad way to describe it, but it's a very big change. And then all of a sudden, that whole, that 26-year-old Steve who can say jump on a plane and go, to the other side of the world to meet your mate from the UK. That you can't do that.
No, you can't.
You can't do that now, and it's just it does, I think, affect a lot of people probably more than they understand. Like a lot of people joke about the whole midlife crisis and that sort of thing, but one of the reasons why I think it's so good for me is because I'm literally I'm literally in this right now. I'm in a job I don't want to be in. I'm in an industry I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
But I've got responsibilities. I've got bills to pay. I've got a dog to feed.
Yep.
Like I've got a podcast studio, which has no memorabilia or merchandise in it.
Get some port stuff up there, some Ollie wines. I'm surprised there's not a Brownlow, a replica Brownlow somewhere.
Well, let me tell you, there's not a poster of Ken Hinckley in here. That's for sure.
Okay.
But it is tough, and like I had a absolutely fucking awful day yesterday. All day, I spoke about the fact that I went for a kind of a different career path and ultimately didn't get the job, and I thought I did really well, but sometimes that rejection, you just like you take like a few steps and then you just brought back down, and you just like you do feel trapped.
Yeah.
And
trap's a good word. Yeah. And funnily enough, though, a lot of the feelings that are brought up in middle age aren't necessarily related to trapped by your family. Work can obviously be that way. I mean, I'm speaking generally now because I know there's a lot of guys that are exceptionally happy in their marriage. They've got great kids, and even sometimes they're financially pretty secure. They've got a job that pays the bills. It might not really deliver personally for them, but they still go through really sort of. It's almost like a really a deep internal sort of reflection. Yeah. And I equate it to similar to, funnily enough, to what we're like as teenagers. I mean, you look at it from a distance, middle age and the teenage years are obviously years apart, and shouldn't be associated too closely. But you look at the challenges, mate. You look at the challenges of when you're teenage years. You don't know who you are. You're trying to fit in. You kind of feel trapped at school, and you can just touch adulthood, which is supposedly going to give you all these great freedoms, which in your early 20s usually does.
There's a lot of stuff I don't want it to touch, though. Like, had I known, I would have been like, actually, you can hang back with that shit. Like, I'll take this and this.
We'd all love to have our time again. I think we'd have a much smoother sailing through those years if we could. But there's some of the philosophical things that come up in middle age too. That middle-aged man might be trapped by his work, or he might have lost some of the the passion and the connection with his relationship, and he might feel unsure of himself. Like all of a sudden people do start to ask themselves, who am I? Which is a really, it's a big question, and some guys don't even like considering that question. And what I've tried to do in this is actually give guys some specific strategies that they can do, and mine is simple. That here's the book giveaway now. It's basically based on 4 things, and it's having a mantra for life. And mine is to live life with backbone and heart. And I got that from a Steve Biddulph book, who's a renowned family, child, male psychologist, and he's just a lovely, gentle person. If you ever get a chance to hear him talk, you should do it. He's brilliant to listen to. He wrote in one of his books, when asked what are the true qualities of a man, it was to have backbone, which is kind of the traditional sort of stoic, reliable in a crisis, can be relied upon for strength, all those sorts of things that we kind of traditionally equate to being a man. But that person is incomplete without the heart side, which is to love and be loved, to show empathy and compassion. The stuff that's becoming more and more, almost like, I suppose that's like the snag, the sensitive new age guy, but you need both. So it's almost like a yin and yang for masculinity or for men. So I have that mantra. I try to live every day, and I try to use that as a reminder for all the decisions I have in my life and things that are going on. Am I acting with backbone and heart? Am I doing this? Am I, so it helps guide my decisions and what I do. And that's backed up by some standards that I find that I hold myself to, my accountabilities, which all the research says that is really important to have, so that here's what I stand for, here's what I promise myself, and you hold yourself accountable for it. And that provides a great sense of self-identity for men, and also for purpose as well. So, which I think is a lot of things that people, when they do have these sort of issues, they lose that sort of sense of identity and purpose. And then that's backed up by mental wealth, which is the positive psychology angle on looking after your mental health, mental wealth. So it's all the things that you can do to keep yourself in good nick, keep yourself on the positive side of the mental health spectrum, in the flourishing or the going okay, rather than falling back into languishing and getting yourself into, or not getting yourself, but finding yourself in where you might need some assistance.
I always refer to it as like a roller coaster. Like, the good days and then the bad. Like I hate roller coasters, but
roller coasters.
Trying to make sure that roller coaster is not one that's going up and down. Just for me,
absolutely.
Obviously, it's also probably going to sound really, really stupid to say, well, like, why wouldn't you want to be like, when you've got the good fucking day, like, be up there? It's because I know that when I have like a day like I had yesterday, that low feels so low that you're almost like, you're literally got your arms up in the air going, A, I don't know what to do, B, I don't give a fuck, C, how much longer can this go? And then you've completely forget about all those things when you're on that massive high. So like trying to, I guess, stay even keel is like, for me, is the hardest thing, but it's the most necessary thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all got our own ways of dealing with days like that. And I had tell you the truth, I went for a job about 2 or 3 months ago, and they checked my references and they'd done all sorts of stuff, and I was like, oh, shoe in. And it was one of those jobs you kind of apply for. I mean, this is my thing, but I had a weak moment, to tell you the truth. I was like, what if this doesn't take? What if I actually need to find a normal job again? And I just thought I'd get it. I was confident, checked my references, and then the bloke rings me up and says, really sorry, great quality applicants, you missed out. And I did have that, only probably for an hour or two, but I was really low.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm kind of going for jobs that I don't really want. But I suppose with you, with the one that you'd gone for, you were, it was an area that, you're obviously very passionate about.
Yeah.
My advice is don't give up with it.
Yeah.
Don't give up with it. Just, if someone doesn't want you, create it yourself. Think of a different angle. Think of a different angle, and and that's how some of the great stories and great programs that we've got around these days have come, because someone's rejected someone and they've gone,
you always see it with
I just do it my own way then.
Yeah, you always see it with Steve Jobs or Walt Disney or something. Walt Disney got rejected by whatever, and then
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not comparing myself to the
Walt Disney.
To Walt Disney.
Hey, or are you going to freeze yourself up?
Or I do have a few movie ideas, but anyway, that's I'll save that for another day. But,
okay. Yep.
But no, it is amazing, and you're definitely not a man who has because even when you posted about this on social media, you said I hate this self-promotion, which is amazing, because you've just spent 5 years writing a book, and your first instinct is, hey, I fucking hate to be this person, but I've just written a book.
Yeah.
And so that it clips your when you're that way, and then you do go through that whole, I should have got that. Like, it's hard to be that way and then go, yeah, I deserve this, because naturally you can take your ego out and leave it in the kitchen or wherever, and to get rejected when you're actually in that state of like, this is like, I should get this. That's hard.
You know what? The biggest thing is, I know this will help people. I know, but I don't want to admit to myself in a way that it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, some people read it and go, just what a pile of shit he's written here. But I look at it and I go, as someone who, I've written it for myself. I've written it, and I'm unabashed I say it, I've written it for men that are going okay, but okay is not good enough anymore. Okay, it's not for clinical help. I'm not a mental health professional, and I'm obviously very clear in that. I'm a person who loves helping people. I'm a professional educator. What I've done is I've taken the expert word of a wide range of people. I've meshed it with my own experiences, and I've also meshed it with my own theories on the thing. So I know it'll work. I know. And to tell you the truth, if it works for one man, then job done. I want it to work for a lot more than that. But the big mental leap for me, because I'm a pretty quiet sort of bloke. I mean, with people I know, I'm very have a chat with chat with forever. But and I think that probably comes from being a really, really quiet teenager who had very low self-esteem and didn't know where he fit in life and all those sorts of things. I think we can all trace our current selves back to what we were like as a teenager anyway. But now the thought of actually getting on there and telling people, I'm the authority, I want you to come to me, I'll be able to help you. That's the really difficult thing.
The confronting part.
It is. And when I was writing it, I knew that's why it probably took so long. I kept on putting it off because I'd get close to having almost a finished version, and then I'd go, I really would fall back in my own ways of, comfort zone.
Yeah.
Get back in Homer's couch on the couch and just, get back in your arse print, which, that's what it was like. It really was that fear of, I think I've written somewhere in there, at the end of the day, it kind of, my fear of not getting it done overcame my fear of sort of rejection, I suppose.
Yeah.
So my fear of regret was stronger than my fear of rejection. So that's why it actually ended up getting done, printed, and sitting in front of us now. So
I've always said I don't have like a bucket list of like I want to go see the pyramids, or I want to do this. I have like a few bucket list items of things I want to do, and there's only 2 of them. I want to sit courtside at an NBA game, and I want to write a book. Now I want to do it in like a real like crazy artist kind of a way. Like I want to go into a cabin in like the middle of like, I'm obsessed with Yellowstone right now, the TV show.
Oh, so am I.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I want to go into like a cabin in like the middle of like Montana and write a book.
Dress up like Rip.
100%.
You want to grow big, dirty, dark mode.
I wish I could do that. I can't. I have to Photoshop it on.
Yeah.
But I want to just go into like a cabin in the middle of nowhere, have a toothpick in my mouth, and typewriter too. I want to write it on a typewriter.
Old school, yeah.
And you know what? I don't care if anyone reads it. I'd actually probably prefer if no one did. Yeah. And I don't even know what the book would be about. But they're my 2 my 2 bucket list items, the things I have to do before I die. So
okay.
I'm fascinated with people that I either know or just people, just talking to anyone who's like please don't take offense to this, not a professional author that,
absolutely,
people who, do this for a living and have, publish, 10, 15 books or whatever.
Yep.
Because I think it is such a, what's the right way to describe this? It's such an amazing accomplishment, regardless of what
happens afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Regardless of the fact, if you never put pen to paper again.
Yeah.
Like this itself is an incredible achievement.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I know it is, and it's actually when people have said, "Oh, it's amazing." I've been very I was really uncomfortable. Like that. I'm not a really anxious person. I don't really suffer from anxiety, but when I pushed the button on publish and I got kind of the confirmation back, yep, it's ready to go. It'll be on these platforms.
Yeah, I
felt really. My wife was like looking at me like, "What's wrong? I thought you'd be really happy," and I was really anxious, and it took like I had one of my close mates. He was, let's get it out there. Let's get this. Let's do that. And I was like,
I just need a moment.
I needed a few days.
Yeah.
Honestly, I needed a few days. And then when the hard copies arrived too, I was still like really like, I actually have to give them to people now that have bought them.
Yeah.
Like I had a few pre-sales and I was like, oh, geez. And it was a really strange feeling because as I said, I'm not an anxious person. I'm usually kind of pretty happy-go-lucky, and what comes. But with this one, I was really nervous, but beyond nervous. If that makes sense. So
no, 100%. And these are 2 like extremely different moments. But in the movie American Sniper, when Chris Kyle comes back from, I'm not sure which tour it is, but he's just had a bad gun battle, and his wife calls him and he's in a bar and she goes, I got a phone call saying that you're coming back, and he's like, yeah, I'm home. She's like, well, where are you? And he's like, I just needed a moment. Like sometimes you don't actually know what's going to happen in that moment. Yeah. So like, you see the book for the first time, and it's very understandable to not be just like, like Santa Claus on the old fire truck, just like slinging it out.
Yeah.
And to just sort of go like, this is taking me 5 years. I just need a second here before we, go into overdrive.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's been the big change over the last couple of weeks, because the actual writing process I really enjoy. It's good just sitting down and typing things out, or I like reading and learning something new, and then going, how can I adapt that? That's what I find really exciting. I talk about it in there as my light bulb moments. You read something, read a passage, or you listen to a podcast, or you see a tweet, whatever it is, some little things, and they're almost like a little rabbit hole that you go down, and then hang on, I found this, and that's a massive. That's why it's got the puzzle pieces on the front. It's all about finding the pieces to your puzzle, and so I enjoy that. But it's the promotional side that I thought I'd probably enjoy more. That's I'm really pushing hard now to try to maybe get on radio and things like that, especially before Christmas. But once again, you've got to sell yourself, and when it doesn't come naturally to you to sell yourself, that's the challenge. But
you've called up Triple M, you've called all these radio stations, and you're like, oh shit, I've got Water Cooler Weekly. It's the only one. You're like, this kind of was what I wasn't hoping for.
Oh, I know. We've been talking about doing this for a long while. So, and I remember saying, let me just have
before the book.
Yeah, well, I had it going. I just knew. I think I just wanted to have it, have something physical that I could chat to you about. But So anyway, it's been a massive learning experience from start to finish. I've learnt so much about myself and my own personal sort of mental health, and we had. I was chatting with you earlier about we had sport and life training coming to the cricket club the other day with Salt, who do some fantastic things with sporting clubs, and and some of the concepts that I kind of take for granted now through what I know here. There's a lot of people that are just getting their head around them. So a lot about the preventative sort of measures and the things that people can do to keep themselves in good nick upstairs. That's I think something that we can continue to focus on. There's lots of focus on mental health, but I still think we need to. I hate a message without a strategy.
Right.
It's like it's like sitting in class and you have a teacher saying, "You have to learn this, Chris," and you go, "Why the hell do I need to learn this?" Correct. And how many conversations you had that over the? And I used to try to be honest with kids. I'd say, "You have to learn this because the curriculum tells you to."
Yeah.
You're probably not going to use it again, but let's just get through it.
There's a list of 5 topics on your website.
Yes.
So I thought it'd be a really good exercise for us to go through each of those and share.
Okay.
Basically, what those words mean to you.
Yes.
When you hear them. So the first one is be inspired.
Yep. Well, I think it's. I take that from the inspiration I've had from people that I've come into contact with since I'll probably look back as far as my first. Must have been my second year of Viewbank College. I think you might have gone by anyway. Whatever it was,
probably. I wasn't there for a good time, not a long time.
I think you'd moved on to greener pastures by then. But they had a boys program, so they just had some all boys classes, and I thought it would be a cushy little gig if I put up my hand to be the boys program coordinator. So I got to go off and listen to Steve Biddulph talk, and that changed my life. Yeah, that literally changed my life. So they're the inspirational moments that some people haven't had the lucky opportunities to hear people at that talk, or go and work with Anna Rubinstein on rite of passage experiences like I got to, or work with Hugh Van Cuylenberg from the Resilience Project. People like that are inspirational people. So I've put quite a bit of their theories or their comments or just their influence into the book, so that men can read it and go, oh, actually, I feel like I know Hugh. I know his story, and I know Arno and the work that he does, or Steve Biddulph's words are inspiring me as well. So that's what I it's not me, so I suppose, inspiring people, and that comes back to my sort of own little issues with self-promotion, but it's using some unbelievable people that do some unbelievable work and have fantastic results with people to inspire men to go, all right, well, you know what, I've been floating through life long enough. I need to grab it by the balls now and get back re-engaged. So life's too short, So we've all got stories of people that have, had their time ended too quickly. And, none of us, to be morbid, none of us know when that happens. So
correct.
You've got to just cash in while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of it, I actually don't think of, athletes or an actor or something, I think about people who break cycles. People who go through their childhoods, in maybe not a great home, or in they live in a certain demographical area or whatnot. People who come out of that and break that cycle are the people who truly inspire me. It's very easy to, and this is not a shot at anyone who doesn't do that, but you're a circumstance of your own situation, right? It's very easy, and we see this a lot with people who come from households with alcoholics and that they have issues with it. It's the people that can, I guess, go through that, break that, and start a new cycle for their kids, and then their kids. They're the people who truly inspire me, and I know a handful of people in my life that have done that.
Yep.
And I've told a few of them that I think in a weird way it's a hard thing to compliment someone on.
Yeah.
But they're the people who truly inspire me. Like I don't get much out of people who have 5 different properties and like to talk about financial wealth. Good for you.
Yep.
But it's the people who do that really sort of make effects on me personally. So the next one is relationships.
Well, I think the main reason why I wrote this is for my family. The day that I met my wife, Megs, was the day that things totally changed around for me. Funnily enough, I got on a plane and went to India for 7 weeks, about 12 hours later. But which she quite often says as me, I tried to shake her, but she.
You tried to break the tag, the Stephen Baker tag.
Oh, geez, that was that was one of those moments where you go, life's just typical, isn't it? You meet this awesome girl, and you're booked in to go away for 2 months the next morning, and you got no choice, you got to go. So I was very lucky that she kept in contact while I was away, and we caught up when I got home. But
she couldn't avoid the charm.
Jeez, it must have been my super fit figure when I got back from trekking in Nepal for
luscious
3 weeks.
Head of hair.
She got me. Well, actually, you know what? When we first met, I did actually still have a little bit on the bonce.
Oh wow!
Actually, I was not too bad. There's actually a photo of me in India in a train, and it looks like I got a good cover.
Yeah,
I reckon it was a bit of trick photography.
Yeah.
But I
can Photoshop anything these days.
Mate, 2004, the Photoshop was pretty ordinary. So, I got back from a trek, and I think I went the really close crop when I was in Nepal, and shortly after the kids say, "Dad, when did you lose your hair?" I said, "I met your mum." So, which is my ongoing gag. So, no, relationships are critical, and there's nothing in our life that. We've all felt it, that provides the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. But relationships, no one teaches how to relationship properly.
No.
Yet there's some great stuff out there. But I think a lot of it is aimed at women, and the stuff that men need to learn, it's harder to find. And, so there's a whole chapter, 2 chapters on relationships, one on your love relationships and one on your relationships with your mates that are obviously critical for men. So I've put a lot of time into that, and it's once again it's meshing my own experiences, things that speak to me with what the experts talk about. There's another Steve Biddulph quote in there about. All relationships go through storms, but it's the couple that can work out a way to get through the storms that end up coming through the other side stronger. And that's, to tell you the truth, that's probably happened with Megs and I during COVID. It's been really. We're always a couple that love spending time together, but I think just being together every single day for virtually 2 years, it really pushed the friendship.
Yeah,
to tell you the truth,
does.
It was.
It's the same for everyone. Yeah.
And I was not the best, especially that big lockdown last year. I was really lazy. I just couldn't find my way to do stuff that I should do. So, caused some problems. But hopefully, we've come out the other side and we're going strong. But I do refer to it's the longest human study in history. It's called the Harvard study. It started in, I think, 1938. Harvard commissioned study into two groups of men. One was pretty wealthy sort of group that included John F. Kennedy. He was one of the initial intake. The other half were basically street kids from the streets of Boston, and they tracked these men all through their life. And all those guys are either they're either just ticked over triple figures or they're just about to. So, and there's still, I think of the original 730 odd, there's maybe about 20 left or something.
Wow.
And they tracked these guys all the way through their life, and they analyse them medically and socially and psychologically, and they came, basically the main outcome of this whole study, and it's in a TED talk. One of the current director, I think, was the one who quoted it, but just said, happiness is love. So everything is just related so much to our relationships, which is difficult for a lot of people because sometimes they're not with the right person, or they're not with anyone at the moment for something's happened. So my chapter on relationships is all about helping men put themselves in the situation whether if you are in a relationship now and you need to relight that fire, you can find a way. Or if you're by yourself, you can set yourself up for, as we say, when love comes to town, you're ready to go again. So, you can't cater for, I think I wasted a lot of time trying to cater for every different sort of scenario, but I can't. So it's basically for, as I said, out of those two categories, guys that are in a relationship now that's maybe lost its spark and its connection and it's a bit distant and, in need of pretty urgent attention. Or men that are hopefully preparing themselves for that next person and they're ready to go. And a lot of it's internal work you have to do yourself. You have to you have to be where you're at as a man to make the most of your relationship. So I won't give away too much about that, but that's the most interesting thing that I found of it when you're talking about sort of the psychology of boys versus psychology of men, that a lot of men never shake.
Next one is fatherhood, which you have more experience in than I do.
Well, you've got a beautiful dog out there, so that's a good training tool. Yeah. So, fatherhood changes your life, obviously, and that moment where the doctor says it's a little, and it doesn't matter what they say after that. It's just things totally change. Yeah. It's joyful, it's painful, it's difficult, it's worrying, it's all those sorts of things, but I love being a dad, and I love being involved with my kids' life as much as I can. So my dad was, he set a great sort of standard with that. He worked long hours, but he always made time for us on weekends, and whether it was coaching my junior footy or go and watch my sister do calisthenics, which must have been really painful.
Your daughter plays footy, doesn't she?
She does, yeah. She plays footy, and she's a swimmer and a footballer.
Yeah. What about your little man?
Yeah, little guy, he loves everything to do with the ball. He's a bit like me. So he's currently cricket and basketball. But footy's big on him. He won the BNF last. Oh, there we go. Yeah, won the under 12 BNF.
So tyre pump.
Yeah, so he's already exceeded me by about 5 places. I think I got a 6th best in Paris once. So playing in a very strong side, obviously.
Oh, of course,
yeah. So no, they're both. And that's what we love. We're a very sporting family. We spend. I'm off to, funnily enough, Anthony Beale tonight because because Banyul's got so many junior teams. We get our home games are out there for some teams. Cricket. So we're at Beale tonight for a clash with Bundoora United in the under 12 blue.
Oh, I hate Bundoora United.
Yeah, no, they're not on my. They're not high up on my shit list. There's a few other clubs ahead of them.
This is completely off topic, but it's very important. If you played cricket in Darwin Valley, you've got this shit list. Who's the top 3 on your shit list?
Oh, well, the carryover from the old HDCA days, Rosanna's number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get along with Rosanna. We never have, never will. So they're actually, and kind of rolling on from the next nomination, which most of the DVCA will agree with, is we call them the Riverside of Banyul of the South, Riverside of the South.
Yeah.
And we call Riverside the Rosanna of Nillumbik. So it's, Anyway, so it's, you know what? It's one of those things. We played Rosanna a couple of weeks ago, and the guys were good fellas.
Yeah.
It's more the generation before that we used to have some really intense battles with, and never really got along with them.
Riverside's top.
You know what? They're a club to be highly respected. But, the way they go about, there was a few things that happened in the last couple of years where they one of their blokes abused our wives one day, which was and said some pretty ordinary things about one of our juniors playing in the team. So I didn't really have any issue with them up until then. I kind of got along with them pretty well. So they got some good blokes there, but just stuff like that, which can happen at any club I know. But
it can.
Yeah, so they're the two that I don't really kind of get along with too well.
I've actually got your club in my shit list.
You do? Fair enough.
So
there's a few ordinary units.
There is. It's a great story. It's a hilarious story. So number 1 is Riverside by a country mile.
Yep.
Never enjoyed playing them. Number 2 is Plenty.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I didn't like playing Plenty for a large part was actually a good mate of mine now, Brent Redmond, used to terrorise kids.
Okay.
When he was younger.
Yep.
And I remember one day I was opening batting and he put a few just past me bonds while I was still half asleep. And so going to play Plenty, we always used to just get shit canned.
Yes.
And Brent would put a few past your throat. And
beautiful ground to bat on though. I love Plenty.
I was never out there long enough. So, but number 3 is Banyule. Okay. Now, probably hard to believe that I actually did play HCCA A grade at one point and I batted at 3.
Did you now? Okay.
Now, it was only one game, and it was against Banyule, and I was playing for Heidelberg West, and I can't remember. It was the year your A grade won the flag the year before. And
I played in that flag, and I'm just trying to think if I played in this game.
I don't think you did. Daniel Barnes played in this game, the scumbag that he is, and he was in first slip, and he was letting me have it because he coached me in footy.
Oh, yes, because he and his brothers have got a history at West, yep.
Yeah, and so the first over, I'm already in, which is not great.
Yeah.
And so the opening bowler, he's gone outswinger to me.
Yeah. Probably Rowdy, who was the West Heidelberg boy that we pinched, yes.
Probably. Yeah. That's his nickname. He gave me a fair send-off.
No, it would have been Rowdy. Yeah. He's called Rowdy for the reasons that he doesn't talk. Yeah.
So he's given me outswinger, I've left it. Yeah. Outswinger, I've left it. And I'm like, this is pretty easy. And then sure enough, next one, in swinger, and I've just gone, and the stumps have just like obviously
out of inning. Yep.
And laughing in my face, he runs up and he goes, I can't believe that worked. And I was like, fucking wait till I get off first, you scumbag. Like,
was this the bowler with Daniel?
This is the bowler.
But if it was Ocker. Was it Ocker? Do you know Ocker?
I don't know.
Because it would have been in that era. Ocker and Rowdy opened the bowling. Little short guy, one of the best players the competition's ever seen.
It was so hard. Like,
that's a ripper.
Yeah, and so Barnesy was laughing in my face. And
yeah.
So ever since, that really hurt. Because I was a fill-in cricketer at that point in my career, batting 3 at A grade shows you how good I was. It's
a hard ask.
Jesus, wait till I'm off before you give me that.
Oh, you've got to do it while they're there. Yeah. Actually, no, and I've never been a fan of the send-off because I've got quite a few over the years. And when you're walking off, you can't do anything. And when you turn around and...
Like, I've got a bat in my hand.
Yeah, I know, which I've actually seen a bloke do that before. But
same here.
I hate that. Actually, someone at West gave me a ripping send-off one day, which and he ended up getting suspended for it because he said a few things that he shouldn't have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
there's a few blokes there.
Went overboard with it, but, I've only really given a send-off once, and it was to a guy from research, who'd been getting stuck into our kids.
Yeah.
Didn't say a word to me and a few of the other older guys, but...
Wasn't Jack Sasella, was it?
Nah, I can't remember who it was.
Sounds like something he would have done.
Yeah, it was a guy, he made a ton the week before. And
definitely wasn't Jack Sasella then.
Yeah. And then he chirped a bit, and so, I gave him an earful as he left. So and it's the only time I've done it.
The next one is mateship.
Mateship, yeah. So, it's crucial. I think we sometimes, being with your mates can be a bit of a, not receive as much attention as it should, especially during lockdown. I think we've really seen this, that, with away from people that you enjoy spending time with and you can blow up a bit of steam with, but also just the support that mates can give you in when you need it. So, we saw it a few years ago now, that suicide that I alluded to, that, the way that everyone got around each other then was, amazing, and it carried on for a long time. So I'm lucky I've got a small sort of group of really close mates that I can rely on for anything, and then a wider group of mates. And it happens through you playing sport and being involved with sport and everything else, that you do have a wide group of friends that we can chat to. But in the book, it's more about just that importance of reaching in and reaching out to men. So we all know that the message is, if you need a chat, make sure you go and have a chat. But the other side of things needs to be, if you've got a mate who is, their behaviour's changed slightly, or they're going through something, then you need to reach into them. So it's that two-way sort of exchange of support. And the other thing I suppose I'll mention is there's a study that Beyond Blue did, which talks about male social connectedness. That there's, I think it was 70% of men feel like they don't have adequate social connections, which is a real worry. They feel isolated or lonely. So that's incumbent on us blokes to reach out to people. And there's no excuse these days with social media and everything else. It's very easy to get back, like as we've shown. It's easy to get back in touch with people you haven't seen for a long time, and go and have a beer or a chat over a podcast or whatever it is. It's crucial for someone's mental health to know that they've got men supporting them. And the other side of that is sharing if you've been through something with others, because you don't know what people are going through. So at this SALT session that we had at the club the other night, there were a few guys that shared a few intensely private things, but important things that other people in the room will be able to look at them and go, well, if I've got something, I can go and speak to this person. Knowing that someone else has gone through what you've gone through is really crucial, because you know what it's like when you've got a trauma in your life, you feel like you're the only one feeling it.
Yeah, 100%.
And to know that there's other people you look at, especially someone you might look up to, and you go, oh, that person's been through exactly the same thing. I might just go and touch base with them. And and people are usually, and that was the other side of this study, that there's a high percentage of men that want to help their mates. So there's a bit of a disconnect between the numbers, that there's so many that need help, there's so many that want to help, but something's missing in the middle. And it's, we talk about things like, active mateship that I've termed it, which is playing cricket with your mates, or getting on a bike and going for a ride with your mates, or using exercise, which we all know is very important to drive your mateship further by being active with each other. So, so no, I think I've reeled off quite a few of the boys in my thank yous there that I wouldn't say I wouldn't be able to have written it with, but I've written the book without. But
they certainly help.
But they're a great support. Yeah, they're a great support, especially what we've been through the last couple of years. It's it's nothing better. We got a little group of boys. We have our wine group, and we go somewhere every year.
What sort of wine are we putting back? Is it the closer to the box variety, or are we getting up to the
Canis? Oh, no, we've got some... Oh, well, our little challenge is that we've been doing this since 2014. So we go to a different wine region every year. And I think it might have been the first trip, someone got a bottle open that was about $120. And we were like, oh, that's great. Because all the stuff on tasting, you might have something $60, $70. But anyway, so we got a $120 bottle opened. So... we've always had this challenge, who can get the most expensive bottle opened. So in March this year, we were at Heathcote, which has become one of our favourite places. Amazing. Yeah. I think we spent more money there than we did in the Barossa or Clare or wherever. It's just great wine, hour from town, super spot. So we're at one of our favourite wineries called Wild Duck Creek. So Wild Duck Creek is family winery. They've got a famous wine called a duck muck. So all the wines have kind of got some sort of play on the word duck or something like that, right? So anyway, the duck muck retails for about $480. So when it was released, wine industry apparently were up in arms because they priced it near a Grange, and they were like, you can't do this, it's arrogant, it's this, it's something. And then they tasted it and they were like, oh my God, this stuff's unbelievable. So anyway, so we went there hoping that Liam would open us up a ducky. So and he totally unprompted, we didn't even have to ask. He's come out with the wooden box, and we're all kind of nudging each other, going, "Oh, hang on, what do we got here?" Opens up a duck muck, and mind you, this was Saturday afternoon. We'd headed up to Heathcote Thursday. We'd been to a winery, Condie Estate, which is another great joint. Went to Condie on Thursday arvo. Went to the farm where we were staying. Had plenty of beers on the Thursday. All day Friday wineries. Saturday night at the Tulane pub. Sunday we'd been to 3 wineries before this place. So our palates were as cooked as they possibly could be. They were horrific. It was, you could...
It's like my palate permanently.
Oh, though. Mate, honestly, you could... If you'd had a Powerade, you would have probably struggled to taste it. had a sip of this duck muck, and it was the most unbelievable. It almost cleared your palate, just went, and then it stayed. It was this for, and I'm not a wine connoisseur. I'm very much a intermediate / just. We call ourselves a connoisseurs convention as a piss take. So we've got all the merchandise and stuff made up. Anyway, so had the duck muck, and we're all going, oh my God, this is amazing. And so had that, and then Liam's got another wooden box sitting there, and he pulls out something else. Single reserve, something, or single vineyard, I think it was called. Oh, what's this go for, Liam? Oh, we sell this for about $7.50. So we'd blown our record from, maybe we'd snuck over 200 a few years ago, for $4.80 or whatever the duck muck was, and then a $7.50.
Gee whiz.
So so it's certainly I've bought a duck muck for a special occasion just to put away. That was actually going to be the book launch, but we haven't been able to get anything done yet. So early in the year, I think Megs and I will open up the duck, and actually I got my 50th in 2 years' time, so it might hang around until then. So so no, I like my good wine, but my favourite wine's a $18 Magellan Musician.
Yeah, right.
Little quaffer. That's all you need. So
there you go.
That's it, mate. So sorry, I get carried away with my wine stories sometimes. I could ramble many stories from different connoisseurs trips.
Yeah. No, that we might do a part 2. We'll just do it on wine.
Why not?
We can taste. We'll taste. We'll
tasting.
We'll taste test. When I think of mateship, I think of one of the most important exercises that I think I've probably ever done was. And this is going to sound weird. I know what I get from each friend, so I know. And this probably sounds like you shouldn't have to go. I can't get this from that person, but I know what each relationship is.
Yeah,
I've a lot of friends. I've certain friends who I call at 11 o'clock and have a chat with. I'm certain friends who I can go out on a bender with, or if I want, but. I know what friends work for me and what state of mind I'm in, and I think to sum up how important it is to me, the best day I've had in the last probably 3 years of my life was New Year's Eve last year. A couple of good friends of mine live down in Curlewis, down in Geelong, and there was about 7 or 8 of us who all went down there. We all literally just sat in his garage, just out the front of his garage, pretty much saying nothing, and all the partners were like in the other, and we just were sort of just like, I think the only thing we said was the 2 things were like, how good is this? And then have a look at us.
Yep.
And that was literally the only 2 things that were really said. But, for that was just like, all of that was removed. We didn't have times where we could go watch the local footy together or whatnot. Yep. And I think that deep down is when I hear the word mateship, that's what I think. I think of that night, and I think of how, if I could choose a night, it'd be nice to, go to the cricket and run into Ricky Ponting again like I did. But that's right there. That's a very hard thing to pass up.
Yeah.
So
and you know what that is? It's a mindful moment. We talk about mindfulness, and everyone thinks that's meditation.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is actually just being in the moment, and having that moment with your mates is really special. Where you can just say, how good's this? That's great. That's a real life experience. As much as getting off and having a wild night is, but just having that moment where you go. Yeah, we're lucky we got each other, and words, you don't have to even say it. Sometimes it's just everyone knows it.
That's it. Yeah. No, 100%. The last one is career, which is, not the most important one out of all that, but it is pretty important. And
to be honest, I need to update the website because I've cut career out of the book. That's kind of I think it kind of works into purpose a little bit. The one thing I'll say about career with guys is, people need to understand that you're not what your job title is. And 100%. So many people, as a teacher, the amount of conversations I've had with, especially with guys that work in sort of different corporate areas, and they go, "What do you do, mate?" And I go, "I'm a teacher," and they look down on you straight away. You have that, and it's not just like a paranoid sort of feeling. You can actually straight away, you're an adjuster. Yeah. So and that's I've never had an issue with it because I made a made a conscious decision to do that, and that's what my life's calling is, and that's what I love doing. But whether it's teaching in schools or teaching through this stuff or whatever, that's what I do. But I think a lot of, and when I did the rite of passage training up with Anna Rubenstein, there was a guy up there who just retired, and his whole reason for being up there was to see if there was some way that he could support retiring men. Retirement is a rite of passage as well. There's a number of rite of passages we have all through our life, and retiring's a big one. And how he could basically design a program which would support men that are retiring.
Yeah,
because his issue was that there's so many men that they finish up their working life and then they don't have many years left after that. They just kind of almost work keeps them going, and a lot of it's just because their identity is shaped by what they did for Christ. When it's not, there's so much more to being a man and being a person than what you do for a living. So so there's a bit of that I talk about, but it's more in the sense of finding your reason for being on this earth. And it doesn't have to be for a paid crust. It can be for, just involving yourself in your community or your kids' sport or podcasts or trying to reach men in their middle life or whatever it is. It can just be something that you do in your spare time that gives you a lot of sense of satisfaction. It's
something that is very important to me, but not from a financial point of view. I've gone from making a very healthy living, working at Sportsbet, to chasing something which was ultimately probably a little bit out of reach overseas and making 30, I don't even know what it was, but like my best friend Andrew, who's Canadian, he was my first boss. He I remember, so I got offered a job, and I think I got offered like 35,000 and something like that. I think I ended up getting 42. I was just like, no, it's not working for me. And I remember like, look, I'm great in an office environment, but I was the highest paid analyst there, and he sort of pointed that out. And let's just say my performance wasn't always in line with someone who should be the marquee.
Setting the tone.
I tell you what, I set the tone out of the office. But yeah, I remember like a job, not a contract renewal talks, and it's like, we can give you like a 1% raise. And I was like, 1%? It's like, yeah, you are already the highest paid analyst here, and you are one of the worst performing. But I used to call myself...
You happy to get 1% with that?
I used to call myself Teflon. So I said nothing could stick. Yeah, and so Andrew, God love him, he would...
Was this when you were in Canada?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, that Aussies can get away with shit when they're overseas.
The stuff I got away with there was criminal. Yes. So he would tell me to do stuff, and I would flat out just in the office say no. And I say, if you don't like it, you can deport me. But we had many great nights outside of the office after that. And
so your contribution was not in the traditional sense, but
I'm a Christmas party.
Team
I'm a
building.
Christmas party
it's
operator.
All about team building. A lot of organisations now are putting a lot of effort into building teams and creating happy workplaces, and you just provide that out of hours.
I'm the glue guy.
Glue guy.
I'm the 13th man. I'm not good enough to be 12th man, but you need me there playing tunes in the locker room. Just loosening everything up.
We all need those people, no doubt.
What's next for you, mate?
Well, after Christmas, I'm going to sit by the Ovens River and have a beer for 10 days.
Yeah.
Going up to Bright with the family.
It's going to be a warm beer by the end of it. You might have to have a couple more.
Yeah. We'll just kind of ease into 2022 with that. And then, it's all systems go with getting this baby out there. And I've got some plans to develop online courses, and I've got to get my my presentations up and schmick and ready to go. A bit of public speaking and things like that. That's the plan. And then I've got a few other ideas in terms of writing too. So roll on. I think I say in the finale of this. That's Man Restarted #1 in the can. I'll see you in 6 years for #2. So the next one won't be that long away, hopefully. So, which will be a focus on one of those topics. So, and then as we were chatting before, I've got some plans for some youth sort of programs as well. That which is my my area of expertise and my passion. So through using the rite of passages and those sort of things to help engage kids in their lives. So so that's kind of it. So looking forward to the footy kicking off next year too.
Yeah, I love the optimism, despite the fact that obviously we've mentioned you're a St Kilda supporter.
That's all right. We're just coming along slowly now. It's been a 10-year build. Yeah. So
be good to see the Saints do well after.
We're not far off. Yeah. I think a lot of people kind of they can write us off at their peril. I think we'll and you're right. It is blind optimism at times, but what can you do? If I've
pray.
When you go through primary school in the 1980s with kids waltzing Matilda Boo for St Kilda, and getting beaten in a grand final by bloody Collingwood, you can anything. You can tough anything out. It's the ultimate in building your resilience.
Mate, thank you very much for coming on. For those who want to get the book, how can they get it and where can we find it?
You know what? And just for your reference, for your bucket list to write a book, I publish this via a online portal called Tableau. Yeah. So it's all self-publishing. So anyone can jump on there and publish something. So give them a rap because they've been fantastic to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's available via the website, which is manrestarted.com.au. It's also on Amazon. It's on it's on Booktopia. The cheapest version is through the website though. So because obviously those mobs chuck a little bit of a premium on top. That's it. So thanks for having me, mate. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure is all mine, mate. You're a good man.